Hey, what's up, 180 family? Welcome to the 180 Drums podcast. I'm Mark Schroer, and I am very pleased to introduce our guest on the podcast today, one of the deadliest, most humble, most badass drummers around, Adrian Bent. Adrian is the touring drummer for Drake. He's also backed up Eminem, Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, and a ton of other artists. A couple of cool things about Adrian. He's actually one of the instructors here, so we have some killer lessons with Adrian shredding drums and breaking down insane beats on 180drums.com. So you should definitely make sure to check those out. Adrian has also been performing drums since he was 3 years old. I was probably running around in a diaper at 3 years old, but Adrian was backing up a band in church drumming at 3 years old. Crazy, right? On the podcast, he's going to be talking about what it takes to drum for one of the biggest artists in the world. Guys, I hope you enjoy the podcast as much as I did. Please welcome Adrian Bent and Jake Nicole.
Hey guys, welcome to the 180 Drums podcast. We've got Adrian Bent on the episode. Now, really quickly, check this out. Drake, Jay-Z, Eminem, Lil Wayne, Nicki Minaj, Carvin Williams. I mean, dude, who haven't you played for, man?
There's a lot of people that I haven't played for, and a lot of those names came from features. So obviously not full out concerts, because for instance, Jay-Z, Tony Royster is his drummer. So just little concerts that he's done, opening up or doing little things for Drake.
Let's just put it this way: you have shared the stage with these guys. That's the main thing, and you are on the regular. You're Drake's drummer.
Yes, I guess so. Yes,
I guess so. So if you guys can't already tell, everyone listening, everyone in the 180 family, Adrian is one of the most humble dudes I know. Adrian's not only one of our instructors and one of our 180 team members, but Adrian, dude, we've also had a lot of fun, man. We've got to go sit in on breakfast television, which reaches millions of people in Toronto. And we've also got to go sit in on some other smaller local TV stations in the morning and talk about music and online education. So, dude, you're a big part of what we're doing, man.
Oh, man, I'm happy to be a part of it. I remember hearing about the vision. I just loved it. So thank you for making me a part of the team.
Well, dude, it's seriously my honor, and we've actually had, I didn't even tell you this yet, but we've had some people requesting an interview with you because people want to know, man, who is this guy that's playing for Drake? What's he doing? And what I think is the coolest about what you're up to currently is that for everybody who wants to check out, Adrian, first of all, you can go to 180drums.com/Adrian B, and you can check out this podcast and all the links. So we've got links to Adrian's website, his social media, everything that he's up to, a bunch of videos of Adrian. But the first thing I want to highlight is that if you go to adrianbent.com, ADRIAN, adrianbent.com, you're going to see that he's a drummer and composer. So, man, how did you transition into being a composer? Just kind of walk us through that, and then we'll go back and we'll recap a little bit more of your past.
Well, for sure. It's always been a dream of mine, a passion of mine, along with drums, to just compose for movies. It started in high school when I was about 14, 15. We just did little projects for my teacher, Miss Watson. Shout out to Miss Watson. And, we just did little projects here and there where she would mute the music, mute the sound, and just be like, create to what you see or what you feel. And I remember, I think it was a Harry Potter movie. I don't really watch Harry Potter, nor have I ever seen a Harry Potter movie, nor have I ever read a book about Harry Potter. But it was a specific scene.
You made a soundtrack to Harry Potter. I love it.
I know, right? Yeah. It was a specific scene. I think it had some trains and some dragons, and I don't know. It was just cool. And I remember just looking at it, and I pretty much created what I heard in my head. So, for the train, I was hearing brass sounds and, low trombone sounds. For the dragon, I was thinking flying and wind sounds. And it honestly took me a half an hour to create it. But the rest of the class, it took them almost 3 weeks to finish one.
Wow.
Piece. It was a minute and something. And I remember looking at Miss Watson saying, "Yeah, I'm done." And she laughed. She's like, "No, you can't be." And that's when it started. That's when I realized I actually have a gift for it. That's when I realized it's something special that I just have. And I didn't know it can turn into money or whatever, but I just do it because I have a passion for it and I love it.
Dude, first amazing thing that you said right away is that you noticed it was a strength, so go to where your strengths are. Like, to encourage everybody listening, wherever you have a strength, that's what you got to go after. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's one great thing. The other awesome thing you said was that, at the end of the day, it was something that was easy for you and you weren't necessarily concerned about the money attached to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a lot of people sometimes get misconstrued with, like, they go to where it seems like there's a lot of money. And for instance, with my drum playing, when I was playing drums, I wasn't thinking, oh my God, I can make a living from this. I wasn't thinking, oh my God, I can make so much money and get paid and buy jewelry and buy clothes. I was just doing it because I had a passion and a love for it. And out of that, God created a lot of opportunities for me to be in. And I just jumped on it.
Well, it's funny, man. Like, one of the things I remember talking with you about is we were talking with 180 Dave. We were at a breakfast television show, and we were talking about something, and I remember you specifically, it stood out so much because you said, man, I've got everything I need. And I was like, come on. I was like, you're telling me you don't want, like, a new pair of kicks? You're like, dude, I've got all the Nikes I could ever ask for. And I was like, well, you're telling me you don't want, like, you're like, dude, I've got all the clothes I could ever want. Just this sense of contentment, just being so happy with where you're at. And, man, I really admire that because it's easy to get kind of soaked into wanting a better gig, wanting a better opportunity, wanting a better pair of shoes, just everything, right? So, dude, you are so well balanced that way. Now, you mentioned, your gift starting at a young age. How did you first discover that you were, how old were you when you started playing the drums? How did that happen?
Well, my mom always said I used to rip the doll, my sister's doll legs apart and use them as drumsticks.
Get out of here.
Yeah. So when I actually started playing drums in church, I was 3, like a full out service. There was no drummer at a night service, but they were still singing. And my mom was just like, don't go by the drums. And I was just like, okay, but 5 minutes later, she heard a drum beat, and for sure I was playing.
Couldn't even see you over the bass drum.
Yeah, couldn't see me over the toms, couldn't see me over the bass drum, but I wasn't even sitting down. I was standing up and playing. The hi-hat was open, because I couldn't reach over, so I was using the ride and the snare. Like, it was a hot mess. If I heard that today, I'd probably laugh, but
oh man,
back then, I'm pretty sure somebody thought it was cute.
I bet you back then there was still more groove than a lot of guys today, man.
I'm still trying to work that out, but yeah, I hear you.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, man, so you grow up playing in the church. What other gigs did you have around town that positioned you, because no one just ends up playing for Drake, and that's also not the case for you. There was a long history. So give us kind of like the 100-foot view on that. What did it look like growing up in Ajax, which is, an area, little suburb near Toronto?
I actually grew up in Malvern. I just recently moved to Ajax.
Okay, so that's even a smaller town somewhere near Toronto, correct?
Yeah, Scarborough.
Okay, man. So growing up in Scarborough, which for everyone listening, Toronto is in Ontario, Canada. It's in the province of Ontario, very close to where I live and where we operate 180 Drums out of. So that made having Adrian in for the day quite easy, and that's something we're about to do again soon, I hope, at some point. So, dude, talk me through it.
Definitely.
Yeah, man, you're growing up, you're playing drums. Like, what was the transition into playing with larger pop acts?
Well, to be honest, I started out really, really small. I was just playing in church for years, honing my skills, getting better, listening to everything that I could possibly listen to. It wasn't one particular gig. Like, I started playing another church that my friends went to. His name was Andre Francis. I started out with him. And then from that, we did something called, I can't remember what it's called, but it's pretty much a competition amongst the churches that allow young performers to perform in front of a crowd. And out of that, I got in contact with a guy named Calvin Chambers, who got me in touch with his choir, who I played for, and he helped me hone my skills a lot, because we'd be playing randomly and he would just be like, okay, start soloing. And I'd be like, but why? Okay, just start soloing. And I would just start soloing So out of that,
Wow.
I developed just that really non-care attitude. Like I'm not scared to make mistakes because everybody's human. And I just developed that fearless attitude. So if I want to attempt something, I just attempt it. Out of that, I met my boy Dalton, who looked at me one day and said, "Hey, I'm gonna use you one day." I was about 16 at the time. He's like, "I'm gonna use you one day," and I was like, "Okay, whatever." And literally 5 years later, that's when he's like, "So, I remember specifically where I was that day. I was in jazz history class at Humber. I was actually sleeping in class, on the table.
You were
And
sleeping.
yeah, no,
Oh my
sorry.
goodness.
Don't listen to me. Make sure you stay in school and make sure you focus. But I was actually drooling, and I got a call, and he was just like, "Hey, what's up, man?" I'm just like, I'm good." And he's just like, "So, I got this artist that wants to tour. He's done a couple of stuff. He's starting to really blow up now." And he's like, "Have you heard of Drake?" And I'm like, "No, I don't even know who he is." And then he was just like, "Well, rehearsals will start in about like 3-4 weeks. Will you be able to do it?" I was just like, "Yeah, if you need me, I'm here. I got you."
That's
And that's just how it
hilarious.
works. Like if somebody wants to work with me, I'll never be like, "This is my price and this is what I charge, or else we can't work." Like I'm always down to work with anybody, right? So I was just like, "Okay, cool." Then I put my phone away and went back to sleep. And then literally like 2 weeks later, he gave me a call. He's like, "All right, so rehearsals are gonna start in about a week." I was like, "Okay." I'm like, "So who is this Drake guy?" He's just like, "Yeah, at the time he already came out with an album or a couple of mixtapes. So Far Gone is the mixtape that really really made him blow up. And then he was just like, the song Forever?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, because Eminem raps on it and Kanye." I'm like, "I know who they are. I don't know who this Drake guy is." So then he was just like,
Wow.
"All right, cool. Well, just yeah, it'll be fun. Just come." And I was like, "All right, cool." So literally, we started rehearsals in a week, and then that was probably in Marchish. We set up for a tour, and we didn't come back till like August, September. Had 2 weeks off, and then went at it again until like Christmas time. Then took 2 weeks off. Then we did Europe the first time. Like it literally went from 0 to 100. No pun intended. Like
Wow.
literally it just took off. I remember the first rehearsal, I still looked at D and I'm like, "D, who's this Drake guy and where is he? Why can't I see him?" And for sure he was standing right in front of me.
No way.
Yeah,
Oh,
but Drake's
dude.
that type of guy. Like he's just a cool guy. He just laughed. He's like, "Hey, my name's Drake, whatever, blah blah blah." It's funny, man.
Well, it sounds like you probably had a really good opportunity to establish a good relationship. This is so funny, man, because I just had a podcast with Lecrae's drummer, Nate Robinson, and one of the things Nate talks about as well is that he, was playing with Lecrae before Lecrae really broke. And, we've had in Keith Sticks McJimson, and he's Ariana Grande's drummer at 180, and he has the same story of like, getting started with Ariana before she really broke, not really knowing who she was.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so cool, man. It's so cool to hear that progression. And like, what were some of the moments when you realized the gravity of what you were involved with?
Even now, I still don't realize the gravity of what I'm involved with. To be honest,
Wow.
like I've never really taken in a moment. I've never really sat back and been like, "Wow." Well, I understand that I'm blessed, but I've never really sat back and been like, "Wow, I get to travel the world doing what I love." Like, no, that's really hard to come by in this day and age. You know.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Big time, man. Big
yeah.
time.
So I've always been fortunate to be in the right position, and what's kept me here, I believe, is, as you said, the relationships, the personality. Because I've seen a lot of people come and go, but for some unknown reason, I'm still there. And it's much more than the playing because it's hip hop, right? All you need
Yeah.
is a four loop, and it's fine. So I'm pretty sure it's the relationships that I've kept and how I've handled myself in that environment.
I like how easy and how humble you make your job sound or how humble you approach making your job sound. Because in reality, it's not just a 4-bar loop. Like, you're a phenomenal drummer. You're playing on a high caliber level. Like, you're crushing it, man. There's few people that can do what you do the way that you do. So it's really cool that you've maintained. Like, I think the reason you work so much is because you're such an easygoing dude. You're so fun to hang out with, and you're so simple, man. Like, it
Thank you.
doesn't
I
it doesn't
appreciate
take a lot to please you. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, very very easy to please. All I need is like probably some chips, pop, candy. I need candy
Oh man.
and some basketball, and I guess we could be cool.
What kind of candy? What kind of candy are we talking about?
It has to be either real fruit, Maynard squirts, or gummy bears. Those three options, and I'm golden.
Dude, hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh man. So now everyone listening, all you need to do is get Adrian's address, and then you just need to like bless the guy and just send him all that stuff.
And I'll give you whatever you want as long as I have candy.
That's right, dude. You want my pearl drums? I'm sending them over, man. Thanks so much for the gummies.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, way too funny. Well, man, that gives us a really good perspective on kind of how you broke into that. And then,
Pretty much.
oh man, and then for you, like progressing past that, when did you decide? Okay, I really want to dig in because you're starting to really make a good impression and hustle in the world of creating, composing, right? Creating movie scores and working on some stuff like that. So, what have been some of your recent success, getting into that world?
Well, I met up with a guy named Tyson who actually got me a lot of auditions just for Ford and stuff like that, and just to see some of their emails, like their requests in regards to making music on how the average mind who doesn't really understand music thinks. So they'd be like, I need some eclectic, weird, windy sounding electro R&B-ish sound. And I would look at the email like, how do I create something like that? But in that, it allows me to push outside my barriers. It allows me to push outside the normal way of how a musician or a producer would think. And in teaming up with him, I've come up with some craziness, and through that, it allowed me to realize how meticulous this job or this potential job that I'm trying to get into is. And it is very difficult at times, but it is very rewarding. And just to be able to create and to have a customer satisfied, like, wow, I didn't think this could be created, but you found a way to create that.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's amazing to me.
I love that, man, and I love that you were describing how something that feels like maybe a limitation, like, hey, we need an eclectic R&B windy sounding song, actually turns into giving you the freedom to think inside of a specific box and not have to create something while guessing what the customer might want.
Yeah, it's insane.
Oh, dude, that's so cool, and there's definitely a lesson there, man. So if you were to go back and have to, talk to yourself 5 years ago, what would be the advice you'd give yourself?
Wow. I would probably say don't ever give up. Just be patient, continue to hone your skills, and work as hard as you possibly can to achieve your goals. Because honestly, 5 years ago, well, I was still with Drake. So let's take about 7 years ago. 7 years ago, yeah, I wasn't thinking, oh my gosh, I have to like pick up a 9 to 5, and I was just thinking, just continue to work as hard as I possibly can so I can get to where I need to get to. So yeah, that's exactly what I would tell myself. 6 or 7 years ago, I'd be like, just don't give up, stay patient. When everything's ready, it'll come into fruition.
Now, dude, teach us about how to manage, how to develop, and how to maintain great relationships.
Wow. Well, to be honest, 100% honest, I don't really like humans.
Hilarious.
But relationships, is very important, especially in this business that we have. It's very, very important. And as you said earlier, I'm extremely easygoing. And as I said, what's kept me in this gig for so long has been my relationships. How to maintain it? Just remain as professional as possible and realize why you are on the gig. So for instance, with this Drake thing or any pop or any hip hop or any major gig that you're on, I remember telling somebody this, my friend, whatever you want, it's out there for you to get. So if you want, to make your name and blow up your name as an artist, as a separate entity, as an amazing drummer, as an amazing musician, that's out there. You can network as much as possible and get your name out there. If all you want to do is drink and get girls and all of that stuff, it's also out there. But you have to put your focus, you have to make sure that your focus is solid.
That's
You
great.
have to, you can't obviously just be like, all right, all I want is girls, weed, and like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that have got caught up in that lifestyle, that's why they don't last, or that's why they fall by the wayside. You know, you just always, for me personally, I've always maintained my relationship with God. I've always made sure that I stayed focused on the task at hand, which is playing, you know, the songs, and making sure that I don't cop, or I don't forget certain shots, or don't mess up, you know, on a big stage. And I've been proven time and time again that, you know, even when the pressure is against us, like Lil Wayne would come in 5 minutes before a concert, literally before we go on stage, and be like, I don't want to do this song, I want to switch to this song, and we just have to execute it.
Wow.
You know, being able to perform under that pressure, you know, try, tested, and true, like we've done that time and time again. So
Awesome.
being able to, you know, play under pressure, being able to just maintain your focus, that's what I believe has kept me on the gig. In regards to relationships, as I said, don't, a lot of people have this preconceived notion that just because I play for a high profile artist, I'm entitled to everything that he has. So get the latest cars, get the latest shoes, get the latest whatever. That is not the case. It's still a job at the end of the day. And although me and him are cool, I don't treat him like he's my boss. I don't treat him like as if he's a separate mega star. I just treat him like he's one of my boys or one of my friends. Whenever we get together, me and Drake, we generally don't talk about music, or we just pretty much rag on each other. Like one time I was roasting him for a sweater that he was wearing, and he was just laughing at me for the shoes that I was wearing. Like, yeah, try to remain cool like that, and just keep, as I said, keep it on a professional standpoint, but also there's a fine line between professional and going overboard. You know, I don't make it so formal where I shake his hand and say, good day, Mr. Graham, how are you? You know, I still call him by his first name and stuff like that. There's a fine line between that, in my opinion, anyways.
Yeah, and I think an important thing to highlight for everyone listening is understanding that there was the relationship that led to the rapport. So, you know, if I was to walk on a gig and say I'm auditioning, me making fun of the artist's sweater is out of place. But because you guys have this history, this relationship that you've developed, you keep it in that spot, and you don't let it go backwards or become formal.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's great, man.
Yeah. Oh,
Man,
before we move on, I've also been fortunate enough to work with artists who have allowed me to be me, because I know there's a lot of artists that are like sticklers, you know, play this exactly the way it is or you're fired.
right.
A lot of times you got to give the artist what they want, and in doing that they'll allow you to open up a bit more. So even aside from Drake, I played for, you know, a couple local artists here and there, and I remember walking into rehearsals knowing the songs verbatim, and I'd be playing it as is, and they would look at me and be like, well, why did I hire you? If that's the case, I could just use a computer and
That's so
have
awesome,
everything
dude.
in there. You can, and then they'll look at me and be like, you can open up more. I think a lot of times musicians or drummers, they'd be like, this is what I can do to it, rather than this is how I can play it, or play the song as is, and then have the artist give you their opinion. A lot of times I find musicians just go in being like, I'm going to put my own personality on it. If they don't like it, they don't like it. And if they do, my personal approach to that is play the song as is, play the song as it's required. You don't need to be doing 32-second notes over a random pop groove. Like, that's just not necessary. And go
Yeah.
there.
Huge, man. What have been some of your biggest challenges? So, as the gig expanded, are there things that you still find challenging, or like what are some of your weaknesses, man, as a drummer? Because it doesn't feel like you have any. So, us mortal human beings, let us in, man. Like, what's some of the stuff that you find yourself working on, or who are some of the drummers that are inspiring you to go further?
Well, my favorite drummers are the typical drummers that every black person likes. Calvin Rogers. I know, right? Sorry.
Oh, I
Aaron
love it.
Spears,
Yeah.
Jeremy Haynes. Jeremy Haynes is my personal favorite. A lot of people don't know about him because he does a couple albums here and there. He's not really a high profile drummer like that, but he is absolutely phenomenal to me. And even though I don't sound like him, I honestly would love to try and mimic everything he does, because he's an amazing drummer. From finesse, his rudiments are like just bananas. His placement is just out of this world. So yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite drummers.
Very cool.
In regards to pushing me, he's definitely one of those guys that push me. And in regards to my weaknesses as a drummer, I think honestly, and I don't know if it's a bad thing or if it's a good thing. Well, it's a bad thing if it's a weakness. I think I don't rely on the metronome. I think I'm too rigid when it comes to the metronome. If you understand what I'm saying, like I'm too on. Like, so if an artist without a click asks, "Hey, can you lay back on this? But I want the groove sloppy and like just a nice little greasy feel to it." That's hard. That's personally hard for me because
That's super cool to know.
So used to everything being directly on beat.
Right. Right.
So yeah, like I would actually have to practice playing, like playing with a little bit more grease. As my old drum teacher. Well, he's not old. Oldish. Mark Kelso. Shout out to Mark Kelso. Yeah. He would tell me always add a little bit more grease to it, which is just a little bit more feel. That to me is hard to come by because I'm so used to playing on a click track, playing with a computer, playing with hip hop beats. And normally there's some times where it is like, there's different feels, but most times they're directly on the line, directly on beat. So that for me would definitely be a weakness.
It's funny, man. I'm actually recalling, and again, like, guys, get on 180 Drums and check out Adrian's lessons, because the other thing that I remember so clearly is while you were tracking a few original pieces that you had composed, Steve and I were in the other room listening. We had our headphones plugged in and we were nerding out. And what Steve kept doing, which is funny because, like, almost every guy, there's things that we notice that stand out about their style. What he kept doing, because we could only communicate via hand signals because we were just listening and we both had our ears in. And he was like, karate chopping with his right hand into his left hand in the middle of his palm, just being like, the timing is dead on. Like, this guy's so tight. And that's definitely what stood out, was your ability to play dead on the click stood out. The other thing about all of your lessons, and you described this earlier, was that you took chances. I love that, dude. Like, I could tell you to try something that you would straight up say that's out of your comfort zone, and then you'd smile and just go for it.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I don't know where this came from, but everybody wants to be this perfect, musician who never makes mistakes. I think there's a separate type of beauty that comes in our imperfections, in our mistakes, and just by attempt. Obviously, you have to practice to get to a certain level, but I was never one to be like, I'm not gonna attempt this because I'm too scared. I was always the one to be like, let me attempt it, and out of that, something beautiful can happen. That's how I think.
Very cool, man. Now, I'm gonna shift gears a little bit. Talk us about having a support group and having a community within the drum world in Toronto. So, within Toronto, we've got a real, what I feel is a pretty consistent, tight network of drummers. Who are some of the guys that you run into on the road and manage a great relationship with? Or even just like earlier you talked about keeping your focus, having an accountability on focus while you're on the road so that you're not going and getting wasted every night or pursuing the wrong things. Does that exist for you? How do you manage your focus?
Well, my mom always taught me, even from young, she would always come into my room when I was like 5, 6, until I was pretty much done high school. Every day she'd come into my room and be like, Adrian, bad company corrupts good character.
Come on.
And every morning she would just say that. And I guess it just became engraved in me. So I've always kept the same people around me for the longest time, who have the exact same goals, who have the exact same aspirations, who are just moving on up in life. And because of that, it's really kept me, sane and kept me grounded. Because no matter what I do or how high I go, they would always be like, yeah, congratulations, it's cool. But, you can keep pushing. Don't settle. Don't get complacent, So, yeah, I've had the same friends for the last, since I was 14, 15. They still roll with me.
Wow.
3, 4 people. Yeah, and out of, touring with Drake, they became, the touring Drake family have become my family also. And those guys just keep me accountable also. Adrian, how's the movie stuff going? What are you working on? How do you get better? Let's work together. Just things like that. Having the right people around you to keep you motivated, to keep you posted, or keep you focused.
Yeah.
That's really major. Like my friend Matthew Burnett, who's a producer. People don't even know I really play bass. I play it for fun, but
Okay, guys, real quick. When Adrian says he plays bass for fun, what he's actually saying, and he would never say this, but I'll say this: Adrian is a monster on the bass, a monster. Like your bass chops. The first time I saw you play bass, I was like, "Is this real life?" Some guys get to have it all, man. So
no, but yeah, a couple of times, he's amazing producer. He's not even upcoming anymore. He's actually a phenomenal producer who's got me, to play on, major artists single like Chris Brown and other artists that are just like, I would look at them on TV and be like, man, that track sounds cool. I can actually go on YouTube and, hear myself playing bass on that. Those are the type of people.
Come on, dude. How cool is that, guys? That Adrian's not only playing drums for huge artists, but he's playing bass on massive tracks. So what are some of the tracks you played bass on, man?
Well, I've actually touched some bass and touched some drums on the last Drake album, which was Views.
Come on.
There's another artist called Nathan Sykes that I played on. That's a single. It's called Give It Up. I played bass on that. I played bass on Zero, which is Chris Brown's. He came out with that, which was a single also. There's this lick at the top that I did, and everybody's just like, "Yo, who's playing bass?" And I looked at my friend. I'm like, "I can't believe you left that in." He's just like, "Yeah." That's how. Just those are like the major artists. Other stuff that I've done, like just me and my boy Jerome, who I've also been friends with since I was 14, 15. He was the one who actually brought it to me, where he's like, "Yo, you've played bass on like 6 or 7 gospel albums." To me, I don't think of it as anything, but he's just like, "That's a lot of albums."
Wow, man! Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, nobody does.
It's amazing.
Because I'm not one to like, just put it out there like, "Oh my God, I'm playing bass." Even though we live in a world of social media, I still believe in some type of privacy. People say it's bad, but I don't know. I like it that way.
It sure hasn't slowed down how much of an impact you've been having. So, heck, man, I post a lot on social media, but I'm not playing bass on, all kinds of records. And so that's amazing, man.
Yeah, it's definitely been a ride, and I'm appreciative of all the opportunities that I've gotten. And as I said, I'll never take it for granted. I actually appreciate it. And a lot of times people think like, I'm this major guy who's high profile, and a lot of times, literally, it was just, "Hey, you want to play bass on this?" And I'd be like, "Sure, why not?" And literally, I'd cut it in like, half an hour, and then everything would be finished, and my boy would be like, "All right, cool, we'll see where it goes," and just end up in the right hands.
Wow, man, way too cool, dude, way too cool. Let me go through and ask a couple questions that are a little bit more targeted as to just kind of your personality, man. So like, if you could give drummers today who are out playing advice that you think would help them establish a career in the music industry, what would you say is crucial? We've talked about relationships. Like, what else would you delve into, man? What else would you say drummers today are missing or ignoring?
I would say, well, to be honest, I don't really watch anybody or drummers, but sometimes I get tagged in random videos on Instagram, and I do watch them. I just don't really respond.
Fair enough.
But a lot of drummers would tag me of them playing Drake songs or playing a track, and half the time, not even half the time, 100% of the time, they're not playing the track. They're just shredding over it. So it leads me to believe, did you at any point even listen to what the track entails? The reason why I played Hotline Bling the way I did, especially at the end, is because Drake literally said, "Yo, you want to solo over this?" And I was just like, who the hell wants to solo over a bossa nova type groove? But I'm just like, all right, I'll figure something out. But if you listen to the other 3 minutes and 50 seconds of that song, it's literally me playing the groove verbatim.
Sick.
Like, nothing over it, no extraness, no nothing. So I feel like a lot of drummers in this day and age, they are focused on what they can do over a track, as I said before, rather than what they can add to it. You know what I mean? They're focused on what fill can I do at this point, rather than how can I add to it and make it that much bigger and more epic without making it seem complex.
I love that, man. What they do over a track versus what they really add to it. That's so brilliant, man, because it's so true, and I actually feel like drumming is simpler than a lot of us give it credit for, but it requires listening and having patience.
Exactly. And a lot of times, even I'm speaking to myself, I go through that sometimes too. Like those original tracks that I played for you guys, I remember the first time I was playing it, I was just like, I'm doing too much. There's no need to be like putting in 30-second fills and all of that stuff. I just need to simplify it. And a lot of times, groove, my friend taught me, Sam Williams, shout out to Sam Williams, because he's the one who's really hard on me. Like, I can do something amazing in my head and on drums, and I'd be like, man, that was really good. And he'd be like, no, you suck. You need to work it out. That was sloppy. You need to fix this. You need a bunch of people like that in your life. But yeah, what was I talking about with Sam? No, what was I talking about before that?
Man, right now you're talking about, going through phases of wanting to chop.
Of wanting to chop.
Yeah, of not adding to music, like playing over it.
Yes. A lot of times when it comes to that stuff, like the original stuff, I'm listening to it and it's just, that's what he taught me. Sam taught me. A lot of times people think groove is like, feel, and there's a bunch of stuff that goes into it. But he was teaching me with beats and drums. A lot of the groove that happens is, he said something like the space in between the groove. That's what adds to it. So he played Billie Jean, and he just said, just listen to Billie Jean in that drum groove. He's like, what is the drummer doing? And everybody knows the Billie Jean groove, but there was just so much space. There was not really any ghost notes. He wasn't doing all type of paradiddles on the hi-hat. He wasn't filling like that. He was just playing a straight groove.
Now, is it JR that played on that?
I have no clue.
Okay. That's really cool, because, yeah, you're right. Like, I mean, that track is so iconic, man.
Exactly.
So iconic.
And if you analyze all the major, like, Michael Jackson stuff, all Stevie Wonder stuff, even today, in today's society, how simple the music is. Like, the biggest pop song, simple the actual meat and potatoes of the drums are. It's not really doing 16 notes, all eighth notes and quarter notes. Like, they keep it simple. It's mainly the hi-hat that's going nuts, but the meat and potatoes of it is extremely simple. So I think a lot of that, a lot of drummers can take from that and just learn from it. You don't need to be adding all types of hi-hat, all types of sounds. Just try and feel as good as possible to being simple.
Yeah, man. Huge, big time. By the way, guys, I looked up the Billie Jean groove, and that's Ndugu Chancellor. Man, like, just such a heavy cat, played on most of Thriller. I think all of Thriller. Yeah, you're right, man. And that guy's got chops, so it's not like he didn't have the chops, and that's why he played that.
He just played what was required for the track, and which leads me to my other thing that I think big drummers need. Remember, I was saying Sam was one of those guys who, no matter what I did, he would always be like, okay, that's cool, but you can take it to another level. Okay, that's cool, you suck. You need to work this out. Okay, that doesn't sound good, that's sloppy. I think a lot of drummers in this day and age are just too sensitive. You can't talk to anybody in this generation because everybody's scared to walk on eggshells. Everybody's scared to offend somebody. And the generation that I grew up around, my boys would stay roasting me. Adrian, you fell off the track here. Adrian, you were ahead of the track. What the hell were you thinking? And they would start laughing at me. You know what I mean? And out of that, because I've always had tough skin, I was the one who'd be like, you know what? I'm not going to let that happen to me. I need to practice. I need to get better. In this day and age, I feel like everybody's going to cry in a little corner and be like, oh my gosh, this happened. I'm not good anymore. Let me go find something else to do. Or just shut down completely. Because I have a young boy who's my boy. He's the same way. A lot of times I talk to him or somebody would talk to him and they'd be like, yo, you need to talk to him because he's just not getting it in his head. A lot of times if somebody's correcting you, it's out of love and it'll better you somehow as a musician, as a drummer. I just personally feel like it's with society, with social media, everything is just a fine line between bullying and all that stuff. Everybody's just too sensitive.
I fully agree, man, and that's in total transparency. To be honest, that's something that I at times have struggled with. Not because it's funny. I've struggled with taking suggestions at times,
Mm-hmm.
not because I disagree with what's being said, but
Mm-hmm.
because I'm frustrated with myself, and then I'm afraid that I'm gonna look like a dick as soon as someone calls me out on something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so example, you're playing somewhere, and the track stops, and someone turns and goes, "Hey, man," and it's always a subtle suggestion. It's always like, "Hey, man, do you mind just like don't play that groove, just do this instead. That didn't sound great," right?
Mm-hmm.
And I almost feel like in those moments, what's hard is to receive that really cool, right? Because at the end of the day, if that say it was the lead singer stopped and told the guitar player to fix something, you're not for 1 second thinking the guitar player sucks. You're just like, oh, it's just a suggestion. But
Yeah.
as soon as it's you personally,
Yeah.
it's taken so to heart, and it doesn't need to be at all.
Exactly. And as I said, it's normally out of love because a lot of people don't know the amount of times I would play something right in front of Drake and Drake would turn around and be like, I don't like that. Change it. What are you doing here? And I don't take it to heart. Sometimes, us as musicians, us as producers, we feel we know better. A lot of times,
Mm,
we, to be quite frank, we don't. We think we know better. We think that what we're doing is better. But what I've learned, especially from doing gigs in arenas, gigs in stadiums, a lot of times the average mind doesn't. The way they think, it's just so simple. And the
mm.
things we're adding to it complicates it and kind of messes up the beauty in the simplicity.
Wow. Dude, that's great, man. I hope you guys are catching this. Like, to everybody in the 180 family, I hope you're catching that there's obviously moments where, Adrian goes off, but that's only because Drake as the artist and at the end of the day, somewhat still as the final say band leader,
Exactly.
he wants that, and for the most part, I would say most artists don't want drums all over the tracks. Like, I'm a few days away from going out to Denmark with a band that I fill in for like once a year, and I go out, and it's usually just a couple shows. And when I first started doing it, there was this bridge section where I would go off a little bit and I was doing all kinds of stuff that I thought was really cool, was really technical, was over the bar line, and it was a drum solo section. It was meant to be that, and the singer actually was like, "Hey, dude." He goes, "Man, all that stuff actually sounds killer, but can you dumb it down a little bit? Because I think you can play bigger parts more simply." And I was like, he's totally right.
Exactly.
So sometimes you are even asked to go off, but still it's like the artist, with Drake, he might actually want you to, do what you do, which is like be able to just shred any which direction. And sometimes you might be playing for a band that is more of a rock band, and they want you to just play something that just sounds anthemic and big.
Yep.
So, dude, lots of learning, but I love that you're talking so much. As a guy who has some of the best, like Adrian, you got some of the best chops I've seen, and yet you're spending so much time talking about simplicity. I think that should be so encouraging to everyone listening.
There's probably 2.5% of us as the population that actually understands what drummers are doing.
What was that percentage?
2.5.
Where did you get that stat from? I love it.
I just randomly came up with it. But actually, people really don't understand drum fills. It just sounds almost sounds like mistakes to them, or why are they doing that to the average mind? And I bring back to the time where I had drum solo at my concert, and to me, I was like, this is amazing. Afterwards, my sister, my oldest sister, came up to me and she was just like, yeah, nobody understood what that was. We could tell you were on time. We could tell, that it was a drum solo, but you got to make it more relatable to average ears.
Exactly.
So, yeah, out of that, that's when I learned, nobody really understands fills. You have to, even when it comes to soloing, you have to come up with reoccurring themes for people to catch on to be like, okay, I can relate to that. I understand that. Now add around that.
Man, I had an interview with a guy named Josh Teitelbaum. He's a good buddy. Everyone can check out his podcast as well. And one of the things we were talking about, dude, is exactly this. We were comparing, are you familiar with the Zildjian Day video where it's Dave Weckl, Steve Gadd in the middle, and Vinny Cayuta.
Yeah.
And what do you notice happen in that solo?
It was iconic.
Iconic. And the iconic moment to me is they're shredding, all kinds of crazy stuff's going on, but Steve Gadd gets everybody freaking out when he goes to the most simple cowbell groove. Because it was relatable, right?
Yeah, with Steve Gadd, who's also an influential player on my life, for him to just create that groove despite the people around him shredding, like that in itself is just a moment, a special moment.
Yeah, it instills so much confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that, dude. Well, listen, man, we got to get ready to wrap this up. This has been phenomenal. I think we need a part 2 at some point, delving deeper into, playing over tracks, talking about, more and more of your perspectives on stuff, and even, some of your compositions. It'd be cool to talk about how you approach composing music, and it sounds like it's a little bit of a natural knack, but I think we could probably get in and help break some of that down for people. Listen, man, here's an interesting question. Is if you could send a postcard that everybody in the world would receive and it'd be translated into their language, but you could just write a couple words, what would be the phrase that you'd want, the whole world to kind of latch onto or understand?
Hold on. You're going to have to ask me that question again just so I can understand it. In depth.
Okay. So if you're going to write a message and everyone in the world is going to receive this message, what would you want to convey to everyone? So here's a really good example. Styx, Keith McJimson from Ariana Grande said, leave a ladder. And, the meaning behind that was when you get to the top, make sure that you leave a ladder so you can invite other people up to the top with you. I thought that was super profound. So, what would you say is the message that you'd want people to, what would be your message to everybody?
Stay the course.
Stay the course. I love it, dude.
Definitely, because a lot of people, as I said, can fall by the wayside. A lot of people can just give up, but if they stay the course, everything will work out. Nothing is built in a couple of seconds. Nothing is built overnight. Everybody thinks Drake's rise to fame happened literally overnight, when that was not the case. Nobody knew the groundwork that he put in. Even with me in drumming, everybody thinks I was this Malvern kid who came out of nowhere and just started playing drums. Nobody knew, I was in church every weekend by myself, playing drums for hours by myself, practicing for hours by myself. Nobody knows that. They just assume I just came out of nowhere. So, yeah, just stay the course. Nothing is built overnight. Everything will come that's supposed to come your way.
Dude, I love that, man. Stay the course. Look past the cover. Yeah, man, you couldn't be more right that, even just myself, as a local, I've known you for a long time, Adrian. I feel like I've seen you develop as a drummer kind of behind the scene before we were even friends. And I've watched you continue to strive. And, most people could stop and just be happy that they got the gig with Drake, but you continue to strive, and then, now you're stepping into the world of composition, and it's amazing to see that. So, dude, thanks for the inspiration. Thank you for your time, because in my mind, we were probably only planning on being like a half an hour, and we just effortlessly talked for over an hour. So, man, thank you so much, dude. We got to catch up and hang again soon, but thanks for giving us the advice, man.
Thank you for having me. Anytime.
Awesome, bro. We'll connect soon.
All right, take care.
You too, man. Bye.
Bye-bye.
There you have it, Adrian Bent. Go head over to 180drums.com/AdrianB to check out the show notes. We're going to have some highlights and some points on what he was talking about and some pictures. So definitely check that out. Something that stuck out to me that was super cool was the whole idea of a relatable fill, and how 97% of people that are listening don't understand the complex rhythms that we might be playing. So we need to simplify to make it relatable to a non-musician. Literally 2 weeks ago, I was on a show playing for an artist, and right after we got off stage, he was like, dude, that one fill in that song, never play that again. I hate it. And it was a fill I'd worked on and was super stoked on, but chances are it didn't work for the song. So I simplified, and now it works. Make sure to go find Adrian on social media. He's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Something he didn't talk about at all on this podcast, which he definitely should have, was how awesome his hashtags are on Instagram. So go follow him on Instagram so that you can read all his hilarious hashtags. Anyways, that's it for another week of the 180 Drums podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.